that there is a need to intensify. I mean, these contacts should be frequent, concerted, with a serious messaging that needs to go out that there is a need to de-escalate. So we welcome the continuation of these contacts. China also has a role. Obviously, China is very close to Pakistan, a strategic partner, and we know that their messaging is also similar. They also like to have the situation de-escalated and resolved peacefully. As for Mr. Trump playing a role, I don't want to jump into it, but I think I mean, any positive and constructive mediatory role that can come in and help the two parties move forward towards a resolution of the Jammu and Kashmir dispute in accordance with international legitimacy, that I mean the resolutions of the Security Council and the wishes of the Kashmiri people, we welcome that.
And what level has the Chinese involvement been? I mean, at presidential level or in terms of who's been involved from China?
There have been contacts. I mean, on our side at the ministerial level, and also at other diplomatic levels. Yes.
Georgia.
Thank you, Ambassador. Georgia Garangioti, Athens News Agency. There have been reports of fierce dogfights between the Indian and Pakistani air forces. So what is the situation on the field, I mean in the region in Jammu Kashmir, on the borderline? And are there any diplomatic channels with India or not? Thank you.
So you mentioned dogfights?
Yeah.
Recent?
Yeah. It has been reported. I
No.
read it in the morning.
Okay. I mean, if there's something very recent while we were coming here, I'm not aware. But we don't have that kind of information. I think there were some reports about some quadcopters or drones, shot down or something. But as I said, if the situation deteriorates and some kind of kinetic action comes into play, this kind of a situation, a scenario is very much possible. We saw that happen in 2019. It was a very dangerous escalation. We do not want a repeat of that. That's why I am emphasizing the need for these preventive actions, preventive diplomacy, and dialogue to calm down and de-escalate.
Colleague from Press Trust of India.
Ambassador Yoshita Singh with Press Trust of India. Recently, the Pakistani Defense Minister Khwaja Asif, in an interview, admitted and confessed to Pakistan's long-standing history of supporting, training, and funding terrorist organizations. To quote, he said, "We have been doing this dirty work for decades for the West." J.D. Vance, the US Vice President, also said that Pakistan should cooperate with India to make sure that terrorists operating in their territory are hunted down and dealt with. What is your response to these remarks coming from senior Pakistani leaders saying that, admitting to having terrorists operating on their soil, Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, this is I thank you for your question. Obviously, there are occasions and repeated occasions where comments and statements are twisted and presented out of context. But if you're going into statements and, the track record of both sides in terms of what kind of public statements are available with regard to the activities of the two governments on counterterrorism, terrorism itself, you would note that there are lots of questions that our friends, our eastern neighbor, need to answer. For example, there's a whole history of false flag, stage managed operations by India in the past, state sponsorship of sabotage and terrorism abroad in Pakistan, and now it has gone beyond the region, extraterritorial assassinations, uh, even in North America, that have been revealed and documented. So that's there. There have been instances reported also where senior Indian officials, including the National Security Advisor, the Ministers of Defense and Home Affairs, they've repeatedly made inflammatory statements in public highlighting their agenda, sometimes of occupying Azad Jammu and Kashmir, sometimes annihilating Pakistan itself, often indicating their desire to destabilize Balochistan through state-sponsored terrorism. So, I mean, the list is long. The point is that India has used over the period of years this bogey of terrorism, presented itself as a victim of terrorism, while Pakistan itself is the biggest victim of terrorism. So they have used this, they have abused this actually to promote certain political objectives. I can recall, for example, the February 2019 incident happened, and the way it was misused by India 6 months down the road, coming up with those illegal and unilateral actions to abrogate and cancel the special status of Jammu and Kashmir, which unleashed a whole new series of problems between India and Pakistan. All of that in violation of UN Security Council resolutions on Jammu and Kashmir. And it seems that this current incident, the moment it happens, and the next day you see a unilateral putting into abeyance of the Indus Water Treaty, totally unlawful. So it's the use or abuse of such incidents to promote the special political objectives of India that is very, very worrisome, and I think the international community needs to take serious note of this behavior.
Yes. Anyone? Yes, please.
Just a follow up on that, you've listed this whole line, but we all know that Hafiz Saeed, he's a UN designated terrorist. He still enjoys security in Pakistan. Osama bin Laden was found in Pakistan, so it's easy, it's convenient, but we all know the track record that Pakistan has had of having its soil used against India for terrorist attacks. The 26/11 attacks, the terrorists came from Pakistan, so we all know that history.
Well, this is the kind of discussion I would like to avoid, because I can go on in responding to that. These allegations, many of these allegations are never proven. You mentioned some names. There are some names who are listed even in the UN sanctions committee listings, and Pakistan has taken effective action against those individuals. India often refers to some entities which are defunct entities, no more operational. That's besides the fact. The point is that India itself has used terrorism as a weapon of state policy, and it has worked at different levels. Internally, within India, inside Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, state-sponsored terrorism, and then exporting this terrorism to neighboring countries. And Pakistan has been a primary victim of that policy of state-sponsored terrorism by India. There are many incidents that we have shared, credible evidence that there were links that were going back to India, financing, supporting, abetting. I don't want to go into details, but various incidents in Pakistan, particularly in Balochistan, and other parts of Pakistan can be traced back to India. So this is a long list. I think the purpose here is to discuss the threat to regional peace and security. and that's why we are here. I have stated very clearly that uh, we have great interest in preserving the peace and stability in South Asia. If India thinks that terrorism is an issue, it is an even bigger issue for us, and we are prepared to discuss that bilaterally. If India is prepared to sit across the table, there can be a discussion on terrorism also, and that used to be the case when we had this comprehensive dialogue process going. So when there is a dialogue, every issue can be discussed. And if there are grievances on one side, there will be grievances on the other side. But the only way to discuss, to address that, is through dialogue. That dialogue is not there, unfortunately, not because of us, but because India has shunned that dialogue.
Yes, yes, please.
Yes.
Followed by. Yeah.
Thank you, Ambassador. Murad Hashim from Al Jazeera Arabic. You said that the suspension of Indo's water treaty will lead to implications for the regional stability. Could you elaborate more and specifically on the bilateral relations with India? What are the impacts is going to be? And I have another question. Also, you mentioned at the beginning of this press conference that there are widespread of human rights violations in the Indian administrated Kashmir. Could you elaborate more on that, and what do you want from the UN specifically on this issue? Thank you.
Thank you. I think on the Indus Water Treaty, as I mentioned, this is a landmark treaty which actually determined the sharing of what is in fact rivers of the Indus river basin. There are 6 rivers in Indus river basin, of which 3 eastern rivers were given to India and 3 western rivers were given to Pakistan, with some provisions for utilization of the water of those rivers, which are in accordance with the provisions of the Indus Water Treaty. So you can imagine that Pakistan, which is an agrarian economy, a large majority of the population depending on agriculture, and a large part of our agriculture is based on river waters. So we are a 240 million large population. You can imagine that in the long run, the kind of consequences that can be there for Pakistan, which is already a water scarce country, if the provisions of the Indus Water Treaty are not complied with, and India goes the other way of having projects which it has done in the past, some major projects which were not in line, the designs of those projects were not in line with the provisions and requirements of the treaty. So if we go that route, in the long run, it is going to have serious consequences for Pakistan, for the people of Pakistan, for the society of Pakistan. So that's why you see that the National Security Committee has said that if India actually tries to stop or divert the flow of waters of these 3 rivers, it will be constituted as an act of war. So it's a serious issue. That's why we have mentioned this. We are going to agitate this, raise this at the appropriate forums, and we hope, in fact, that reason will prevail and that India will revert this unilateral announcement of putting this treaty into abeyance, because I think this is a fundamental treaty that is governing the some of the crucial aspects of diplomatic and bilateral relations between our 2 countries. It has withstood the test of time. It has withstood adversarial moments, even wars, and we believe that it would make sense for India to revert this action. You mentioned about the human rights violations in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. That has been a long-standing problem. This is one aspect of the whole situation of Jammu and Kashmir, which is a territorial dispute, it's a political dispute, but there are the humanitarian and human rights dimensions of this dispute, which are directly impacting the daily lives of the Kashmiri people for many years now. And this situation has been documented by international human rights organizations, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty. There you have two major reports of the High Commissioner for Human Rights on the situation of human rights in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. So there is a whole list of documentation that is available. There is this reign of terror which is there on the Indian side of Kashmir. In the wake of this particular incident, there are reports that they have gone ahead and bulldozed without trial the homes of the Kashmiri people, which they said was suspected. I mean, there have been arrests under vague terror charges, daily harassment under pretext of counterterrorism. So there's a whole lot of actions that have been there in recent years, extrajudicial killings, this use of pellet guns, rape as a weapon of war, persecution of women, in particular targeted attacks against girls. It's a whole list, and that's why I think if you start this discussion, and if you have this kind of discussion that was pointing out towards Pakistan and with regard to terrorism and counterterrorism, I can say that we are ready. I mean, and we have done it so many times in the past, and we can hold out this mirror to our neighbor as to what has been their track record with regard to terrorism and human rights.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Ambassador, for your press briefing. My name is Yu from Kyodo News, Japanese news agency. I have two questions. One is simple, to be more clear about good office by Secretary General. So have you responded to Secretary General officially? And secondly, what do you think about the nuclear risk? And then, do you think Pakistan and India need nuclear disarmament? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for those two questions. On the first, I think I was pretty clear and I explained in detail. We welcome, and it's an unconditional offer and welcome to the Secretary General's offer of good offices. In fact, if you had a different question, you can clarify. Yeah.
Did you respond officially to the Secretary General? Did you answer to the Secretary General?
Yeah. In fact, I can tell you that we invited him to play that role. And even in my recent meeting with the SG, and this is what the Prime Minister also conveyed to the SG, that we accept and we welcome his role. And we have, in fact, suggested to him to visit the region. So that means we have officially accepted. We wanted to encourage him to play that role. So obviously we will accept. And on your other question, I deliberately did not mention that. Everyone knows that Kashmir is often termed as a nuclear flashpoint, but I believe that Pakistan is a responsible nuclear weapon state. I assume that India also exhibits that same kind of responsibility, and we should not contemplate a situation that would move in that direction.
Yes, please.
Hello, Mr. Ambassador. Thank you so much for the briefing. This is Ahmed Ali speaking on behalf of Sphinx News TV. It has been alleged that prior to the attacks on the Indian-administered Kashmiri region, India has administered thousands of permits for the settling of Hindus into the region. Kashmiri residents have expressed public condemnation for this since the revocation of Article 370 in 2019. Does this somewhat recent development have any relevance to any pre-existing escalating tension between India and Pakistan prior to the attacks? Or to your knowledge, was there any progressive dialogue between both the Pakistani and Indian administration about this? Thank you.
Thank you. I think what you mentioned is part of those problems that I was referring to in terms of I was focusing on the human rights issues, but it's very pertinent to come back to the actions, the illegal and unilateral actions that India took on 5th of August 2019. And the primary purpose of those actions was to undermine the internationally recognized disputed status of Jammu and Kashmir, and eventually they showed through their other measures that they instituted that they were in fact going for this demographic change of demographic composition of the disputed territory, which in fact is in violation of the relevant Geneva Conventions. So this is something that they have been doing. There are credible reports of the Indian administration in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir of actually issuing certificates, domicile certificates to non-residents, which was never possible before the revocation of those the constitutional provisions. This is a serious action that not only violates the relevant Security Council resolutions, but it puts into jeopardy, because if you are altering the demographic composition of a territory whose final status is yet to be determined according to the UN resolutions by a referendum or a plebiscite under the UN auspices. So changing of this demographic composition is very, very serious. And so from that perspective, it's one of the many escalatory steps that India has taken since August 2019, and it is all contributing to the very precarious situation that is there on the Indian side of Kashmir. The Kashmiris are totally disgruntled. The India might do all that it can to project that there is normalcy and things are back to normal, but that's not the case. Basically, it seems to us that they've totally alienated. So Kashmiris on the Indian side of Kashmir are totally alienated from this occupation, and so it seems to me that they've lost the Indians have lost the battle of hearts and minds in Kashmir. This is very, very important.
So, since we have come to the close of our deadline, so one quick question. Last
A
one.
follow-up on my colleague from Kyoto about the nuclear disarmament. What is Pakistan's doctrine about the use of nuclear weapons, and especially for the point of first use? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, it's a stated policy. It's Pakistan's policy on nuclear disarmament, non-proliferation, and all the related issues is in the public realm, and it's very well known. Thank you.
I thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you.